Retro-style turn-based RPGs are definitely something I've covered a lot of on the channel. Many of these have been the mobile-based Kimco RPGs, but every so often something else pops up. Such is the case for the game we're going to talk about today. Originally released for PC a couple years ago and enhanced for consoles, here is my review of RFL Enhanced Edition for the Nintendo Switch. The story of this game takes place in the world of RFL, a fantasy world where people live on islands floating in the sky. You play as a young girl named Lita who accidentally finds an artifact of power and gets caught in the middle of a conflict between humans and vampires. She then has to go on a journey around the entire world of RFL to collect other artifacts of power and save the world. Overall, this story fits right at home with other Super Nintendo style of RPGs, though one thing that I feel sets it apart outside of the more modernized ways the characters interact with one another is the overall theme of this being an unwilling journey. At several points of the story, the game will be telling you that Lita is in the position she's in not because she wants to or because she's some magical chosen one, but because she accidentally came in contact with that artifact of power and she was kind of forced along on the journey. When it comes to gameplay, RFL is a turn-based RPG with a lot of exploration elements thrown into the mix. In being the Enhanced Edition, we've got a few differences between this and the PC original from a couple years ago, mostly in the form of visual updates and upgraded crafting and battle systems. So when we get to progression, this is kind of an open world game. You've got a lot of different areas that you go through from panel to panel on the big world map, along with several fast travel points you'll encounter and be able to activate across the story for ease of access to the map when you need to pop around. I've seen many people criticize this under the guise of it being easy to get lost, but in all honesty, combining the signs that are around most of the tiles that tell you which direction leads to which location, along with the pretty good sense of direction you get in story dialogue, I never really got to a point where I didn't know where I was going. Now getting back to exploration. As you explore each area, you'll be wandering around and opening up treasure chests, but you'll also be doing a few things that aren't entirely typical to these retro style games. Along with walking, you'll be able to jump into a lot of water areas and swim around to new locations, as well as having a crawl position so you can get down on all fours to enter some doors and go under obstacles. The dungeons are also littered with a lot of materials that you can mine and pick up from the environment itself that ties right into the game's crafting system. This RPG has shops that you can buy a lot of things from, but weapons and equipment are not among those things. There are materials littered literally everywhere across the game, and the only way to get better weapons and armor is to collect materials and upgrade them from the crafting menu. And because most of the rare materials you need for weapons are littered around dungeons, it further encourages you to explore, and explore. You're definitely going to need those upgrades as we dive into the battle system. RFL really plays like a pre-active time battle RPG. The battle pauses when you're inputting commands for your party members, so you don't have to worry about rushing through your strategy. On top of that, MP regen makes your strategy even easier to implement. For every turn your characters take where they don't use a skill, they gain back a little MP for the next turn. This makes the combat system feel a little more modern, as does the inclusion of ultimate attacks for each character and a gauge that slowly builds up over the course of your battles. Finishing these battles also nets you experience and level ups, which opens up the second way to customize and power up your characters. Instead of the game having set amounts of stats you get per level, you're given stat allocation points that you can put into whatever stat you want. But be warned, this is not a super easy RPG, you've got to have at least a little bit of efficiency. If you, for example, ignore endurance in favor of chucking all of your points into attack and magic, you'll very quickly get to a boss fight where you'll almost get one-shotted when you shouldn't. Thankfully, if you do manage to screw it up, the Traveling Merchant will allow you to reset all of your allocation points character by character. That also brings us into difficulty, which has a very unique feature that I have never seen before. RFL's got your typical normal and hard difficulty settings, but it's also got this setting called Story Mode. Difficulty-wise, it's no different from normal, but when you go into battle, your command list now has this extra command called Story Mode. Selecting it will instantly kill all enemies and give you all of the battle spoils from experience to dropped items. As the game will tell you, this is really meant for people who want to see the story rather than have a difficult RPG to play. But if you ever have to grind battles for a boss, it definitely makes that grinding go by a lot faster. And now let's dive into content and length, which isn't really as huge as you might think. On the normal difficulty setting, the game took me about 10 to 12 hours to clear, and outside of a 15 to 20 minute epilogue, it doesn't really have anything in terms of post-game. And now let's dive into presentation, which is a little odd. Graphically, the sprite art looks very good. It's got that classic Super Nintendo style to it, but also enough detail and polish that it's something the Super Nintendo probably couldn't handle. But there are things that I don't like about how the game looks. The character portraits for dialogue sequences in the main menu look really blurry, as opposed to the rest of the game, which doesn't. Now as we get into how the game sounds, we have a very weird music situation. All of the game's music I enjoyed, and I feel that it's really well done, but the game has no battle music. When you're wandering through a dungeon and have this nice calm serene music playing, that calm serene music keeps playing when you encounter enemies and goes throughout entire battles. And for an RPG like this, the fact that it has no battle music is just a very bizarre, awkward situation. I don't have anything bad to say about performance, so now let's go into battery life. On the original model, RFL has a battery range of 4 hours and 2 minutes up to 4 hours and 30 minutes. On the Nintendo Switch Lite, it has a range of 4 hours and 6 minutes up to 6 hours and 4 minutes. And on the V2 or Redbox 2019 model, it has a range of 6 hours and 48 minutes up to 9 hours and 20 minutes. In conclusion, this is a retro-looking RPG that fits the mold pretty well. Although the lack of battle music is particularly baffling, it's got solid enough gameplay to be worth the purchase if you're into these old school turn-based RPGs. Reviews to Go rates RFL Enhanced Edition for the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.